This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast.
Hey! Time for school!
Hey School Success Makers! Today you're going to hear from my new friend Bonnie out of the great city of Chicago, Illinois. She's running an amazing Christian school there and they're doing some awesome things, so I just had to have her on, and I love this conversation that I have with her, and I know you guys are going to love it too. So stay tuned for this next episode of the School Success Podcast. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of the amazing city of Chicago, Illinois, Miss Bonnie Ho, who is the principal of Poi Tak Christian School there in Chicago. They're doing some awesome things there, and I'm not going to take any of the thunder away from her. I want her to explain all that, so I'm going to pass it off to Bonnie. Bonnie, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for pronouncing our name correctly.
You are very welcome. I would love to know, what does that name actually mean?
Actually, the word Poi Tak is the phonetic translation of two Chinese character. That two Chinese character means a lot. Poi means nurturing and cultivating. Tak means character and virtue. So when you put the two Chinese words together, is cultivating or nurturing character and virtue, and that is the vision of the school. Not only nurturing in terms of academic, but more importantly, character.
Man, I love that. I love that. And are you originally from China then?
I myself was born in Hong Kong. I'm Chinese. I was born in Hong Kong, but I came to the United States when I was a high school kid, when I was in sophomore year.
Okay, so you obviously have been here for a while, and you were very, very well immersed in the Chinese culture as well as the United States culture. I'd love to hear a little bit about your experiences from when you were a kid in China and kind of what that was like growing up in Hong Kong.
Education was totally different. I think it has something to do with my experience now that brought me to the educational arena and becoming a principal eventually, because I was a failure when I was in Hong Kong. I was a bad student. In Hong Kong, the education is, we have about 40 kids in one class, which is similar to the US public school. But then when we come to report card day, the teacher will announce number 1, number 2, all the way to 40. Number 1 meaning you got the highest score, and if you're the last one being called, you are the last. And the whole class will see you walk up there to get your report card. I was always the second to the last. I did not make it to the last. I was always second or the third to the last. And after a while, I believe in what the teacher commented on me as, I'm a bad kid. You're a bad kid, and you're dumb, and you're lazy. But actually, I work hard, and I bang my head on my head to try to understand certain things, but I wasn't able to. So nobody could understand how struggled I was, wanting to do good, but no matter what, wasn't able to comprehend what's going on in the classroom. I eventually concluded that the teacher was right, I was dumb, but I did not agree that I was lazy because I worked really hard. Up until when I came to the US, things started to change. I think before I came to the US, things started to change because my mom and dad, they were not educated. They were born during the war and wartime, and they were not able to receive education. But they have a very open mind. They are very open-minded, so they believe in education. So they transfer me out from a very high standard school to a lower standard school. And in that lower standard school, I began to excel and began to see a difference. I could do it. And so I gained a little bit of confidence there. When I came to the US, I think the US educational approach is completely different because in Hong Kong it's top down, kind of cramping, and I'm the teacher and I'm giving you the knowledge and you are supposed to receive it and memorize it. Now for me, I cannot memorize it. I have to understand it and then I own it. But if you make me memorize it, I suffer. There's no room for innovation. There's no room for my own thinking. So my job as a student was to memorize. I hated that. I still work hard, but I was not able to comprehend, particularly math. So when I came to the US, the teachers are different, the student could talk. And so my mind began to, exercise, and I realized, hey, I could comprehend things, even though, another struggle back then was English, like language barrier. But once I get through that, it was okay. And I was like, the before and the after, there's a huge difference. It's just because that I believe every child can learn if they are given the right environment. And if we could understand them, what they need, and place them in the right environment, they will blossom. Sorry, it's a long answer.
No, I love it, and it was so good. I could talk to you for a while. I love hearing about the Chinese culture and obviously you growing up there. I think that's awesome. I would love to also know, because I know just a tiny bit about this, like, were you raised a Christian over there in China, or did that happen later when you got to the States? Because I know obviously China handles Christianity over there way differently, of course, than the United States. So I'd love to know a little bit about that journey as well.
Well, I was a non-Christian when I was in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, back then, we had the freedom because Hong Kong was not part of China until 1997. It is only after China took back Hong Kong and then they gradually take away the freedom. Right now, Hong Kong is going through a lot of turmoil in terms of the religious freedom. But back then, we had freedom. But I just did not, have a chance to get in touch with Christianity. I had only one time somebody knock on our door and give us a pamphlet, a tract. I did not know what that is. I gave it to my dad, and that's, these are good things. These people talk about good things. Then there's an invitation for us to go to a church. So me and my buddy went, and we were very poor. I came from a very, very poor family. We were living in wooden hut. But then when I climb across the train track and the fence, on the other side, there's wealthy people there. So the church was located on the other side of the fence. So we climbed the fence and then we went to this church. I still remember, it's so many years now, the pastor was talking about the prodigal son that one day came back and the father welcomed the son with open arms. It's a story that stuck in my mind. So after that, we went to the park and play, and then we were talking about, next week should we go again? And then we concluded eventually we're not going because we noticed that people were passing the basket. I had no idea what that was. I just know that people put money in there. And we had no money. And we felt bad that we're not paying, So then we only have a dime back then, okay, a dime. What can you do? So then the next week, actually, we climbed the fence again. While we were walking, so we have a dime. So we put the dime in the basket. But then we decided, okay, no, let's go buy popsicle. So then that was the end of my encounter with Christianity. But that story kind of like stayed with me for a long time. Then I came to the United States, did not know how to go to school. Back then, not every school had bilingual program. So then I had to go to a very far away school that will require us to taking a bus, taking a train, walking again, 1.5 hours to go to North Side. So then a friend's friends took me to school. And then everything is new, there's barrier, there's like challenges. On Friday, she said, Bonnie, would you like to go to fellowship with me? And I said, what on earth is fellowship? And she said, church. Now church, I know what is church, but she said fellowship. She said it in Chinese because they knew that I did not understand English. Their Chinese is not good, but enough to talk with me. And then she said it in Chinese. In Chinese, the word sounded like at the end of each year, Chinese family will sit, around at a round table, and then we have our final like year-end feast. And the term sounded like that. Actually, one of the character share with that word. So I thought, maybe she's taking me to somewhere that, there's something that, maybe we're going to eat. So I tag along. Two reasons. One is I'm curious about what this fellowship is all about. Second is I still did not know how to go home. So if I don't go with her, I don't know what to do. So I went and then realized, she took me to this church, and then I see all these young people, high school kids, they were singing, they were very happy, singing songs that unfamiliar to me. And then at the right time, my friend got up there and said, she's the chairman of the group. And then she started talking about things that I did not understand. Now that's how I, begin my journey of finding God, or more correctly, God finding me eventually, and became a Christian about, I think, 2 years later. And now I'm a full-time Christian worker in a Christian school.
Awesome. And how long have you been there now?
As a principal?
Yeah, at your current school.
This is my 10th year as the principal here. And then before that, I taught in this particular school. I taught preschool classes.
Okay. Man. And currently, I would love to know, so as we kind of dive into some more of the school-related questions, how old is this school? What's your current enrollment at? And are you guys looking to grow? Do you have room to grow?
Okay. The school carries 69 years of history. The school was founded by the Chinese Christian Union Church located in Chinatown. And that is exactly the same facility the school is operating in. The founding church founded the school with the vision of like an extended arm reaching out to the non-believing community. 69 years later, the vision remains the same. Therefore, every year, 95% of the new incoming students are non-believers. We do open enrollment. We do not require family to be Christian to enroll in our school. So this is a very place, not only the church is very vibrant, the school is also very vibrant. And particularly during the pandemic time, both the church and the school, and then one other organization also carry the same name as Pui Tuk. It's called Pui Tuk Center. The church also founded that center about 26 years ago. So all these three entities, we would like join hands to support the community. Is really impactful in the Chinatown, Bridgeport, McKinney, this like neighborhood community. I'm always excited to see God's people joining hands at difficult times, at crisis, and see the difference being made in people's life. I mean, I remember when we first hit with the pandemic, our focus, the school focus shifted because the school is in the middle of a school expansion plan. This is one of the biggest challenge with the school is facility, because the church founded the school, and then the school is operating inside the church, but the church was never built for the purpose of education. So we just make do, and then we do not have enough space. Everything is multi-usage, all kind of difficulties. So the school is working on school expansion. We just got done with school expansion Project Nehemiah Phase 1, and then trying to get ready to launch Phase 2, and that's when the pandemic hit. So then all the fundraising effort stopped, focusing on school expansion, but focusing on helping the parents. So because they were not able to pay tuition anymore, because Chinatown actually got hit before everyone else, because a lot of the store were, if you walk down Chinatown, you will see it's like a dead city, like stores were closed. So we faced with parents did not know what to do. The school prepared ourselves because I see that it's coming. So then 1 month before the city shut down, I told the staff, we need to prepare ourselves. I think e-learning is the next thing. So then everybody prepare and equip themselves, and they are knowledgeable, but it's just like we need to prepare ourselves. So then on the day, the March, whatever day that was, I think it's March 18th, that morning, I emailed them because we have morning devotion with the staff every morning. And I said, everyone make effort to come. I have special announcement. So then I announced at 8 a.m. that morning that we are going to go e-learning because the situation is too severe out there. And so everybody get to work. At 3 p.m., the governor announced that school is going to shut down. So then we were several hours before the governor announced their decision. Our school already made our decision. So on Monday, the following Monday, we were everybody already connected, and we were able to deliver 5.5 hours online instruction, not giving them homework, but actually meeting with the teacher online. And it was exciting to visit classes because I could just punch a button and I go to different classes and see how students were interacting with the teacher and how excited it was, seeing all these classes going on Monday. But it was also very interesting because the preschool were in a lot of help because the preschool predominantly are Asian parents, and then they did not know computer, don't know how to log on, all that kind of thing. Even though we prepare them, it was not working. On that morning, our office was jammed with Chinese parents with their iPad, with their computer, and some of them don't even have computers. So ahead of time, we already asked people, please donate computer, like secondhand, whatever. So we got all that and then helped them log on. And I remember talking with the father over the phone, helping him to log on. It took me 20 minutes because the terms that I talked and he did not understand. And I have to say in Chinese, but then, whatever on the computer is English. So it was funny. So finally, I said, okay, I'm going to take my laptop and I'm going to walk to your teacher's classroom. You stay online and we're going to step by step go. Okay, eventually he got logged on. So hallelujah. So the kid, the preschool are on. Then I walked back to my office. They said, Mrs. Ho, go to the children's. One of the teachers was trying to help a Chinese parents to log on the iPad, but my teacher doesn't speak English. So you can imagine two different languages going, trying to make each other understand. So when I get there, my teacher was sweating and she was trying sign language, all that. So I took over, helped them. So we got through the first day, and then all of our preschool classes, all 5 of them, were online. And the 3-year-old, they were engaging, they were dancing, they were singing, follow along. But what more important is when I watch them, I see that it's not just the preschool kid, it's the sibling, it's grandpa, grandma, mom. The whole family were taking the same class as the preschooler there. And they were smiling and they were exciting. And sometimes the younger sibling will follow along, but follow along wrong, and our student will correct them. It's so sweet to watch that. I think no one welcomes the pandemic, but if we could put this in God's perspective and see through, see beyond the surface, I think out of ashes, God has brought some fantastic things out of. For one thing is the whole school community got expanded. We personally got expanded. I told and I encourage our staff, this is your golden time. Once in a lifetime, you never were able to bring the word of God to the entire family into their bedroom, into their living room. Now you could, and they are more than willing to listen to you. And while these are going on, my admin staff and myself were making a lot of phone calls. Within a month and a half, we made at least 450 and above phone calls. We only have 150 students because the facility would not allow us to take in more. So 100 some family, we made 400 some phone call, meaning one family received several phone calls to just ask them, are you okay? Do you need anything? Can we help you with anything? So some of them say, Mrs. Ho, I don't have money to pay rent. Can you give me back the tuition that I pay? And I said, I'm sorry, the tuition already spent. You know that your tuition doesn't cover the operation. We need to fundraise for the rest of it. But it's not like we are saving money. Besides, administrative-wise, I cannot give you back your tuition. But I said, I have your back. I want you to feel safe. You are secure. Do not stop sending your kid to school. Continue the education, and we will fundraise for you. What you need, not only that now, forget about paying tuition, that's okay, we understand. Keep your child in our school, but we will help you. We will find way to help you. So then I reach out to the church and ask them for the benevolent fund to give to parents who cannot pay tuition, who cannot pay rent. And then the church and the Project Center and other nonprofit organizations get funding. And then we started providing food, like bags and bags of food. Every Saturday morning, like thousands bags of food are distributed from the gymnasium to the community. And we begin to offer vaccination, we begin to offer COVID tests. So all these three organizations join hands to do that. And I think after all these were done, I can, even in the middle of it, I can sense that the parents, the way that they talk with us, that we gain the total trust. They know that we are not an ordinary school. There's something different, something that they cannot find out there. It's because we go beyond, because we care them as a person, not because they pay tuition, not because they are our parent. We just care them because they are also created by the image of God. Not necessarily that they are connected with God yet, but we believe that they respect our faith a lot more and give us their ear a lot more when we talk about the gospel.
Man, I love what you guys are doing. You're loving your community. You're pouring into the students you guys got, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I know you had already mentioned, even you already, one of the parts we talk about is some of the challenges you guys are up against. You already mentioned one or two of those. Do you have any other challenges you guys are currently up against?
Right now, we need to pay more attention on the social and emotional challenges within the school community, the aftermath of the pandemic. I think comparatively speaking to other schools, we are doing fine, but we have a very high standard. We don't just let little things go by. So we pump in a lot of manpower, attention to students' needs in those areas, because we were e-learning from March till June, and then next fall, the preschool, the preschool were only online for 3 months, and then they were all on site. Although even the preschool program were running really well, the parents were very impressive. I think people was like, what, you are keeping the preschool kid for so many hours and then they are still engaging? I said, yeah. And there were times that we will send them to get something, part of the learning, and they were so excited and go get it and then come back to in front of the screen. But I still, from an educational standpoint, I still do not think e-learning is a good fit for preschool, particularly not for elementary, not even for middle school. It is only when we have no choice that we will do it. So then we come up with a very, very, very extensive protocol. So then we could keep everybody safe, and we had all 5 preschool classes came back on site after that 3 months. And then kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade were e-learning until the last quarter, because I've been observing, I did not like what I see, because students were kind of trapped into the virtual world. The bad thing is parents did not know what the virtual world is all about. And there's a lot of there's language that I'm beginning to see that is not wholesome, and it's from the internet, it's from the virtual world that they pick up the language, they see the images, and I'm seeing disaster coming. So I call a meeting with all the parents, because before we make a decision that they will go on with e-learning, we also had parent town hall meeting, and they said that, well, I don't see why we don't go e-learning, because we did not see any learning lost. You guys did a good job. Since you guys did a good job with e-learning, why risk having kids being affected by coronavirus? So logically speaking, they're right. But I told them that if we go e-learning, A, B, C, D, E is going to happen, but they cannot see it back then. And now I'm seeing it. So I called them and I said, give them evidence. And then they said, yeah, we need to come back. So then we came back the last quarter. And when they came back, I see some strange thing. When we had the first event is Thanksgiving, we done it totally different than before. We were not able to have the entire school, just like small group. The middle school were in this large room, and normally before I enter that room, I should hear them, but it was like complete silence. I thought, oh, maybe I'm early. But when I stepped in there, I saw them there. Of course, they were sitting in a distance, but then they were kind of watching each other and not making interaction. And said, "Whoa, this is really odd." Eventually, the teacher told me it took her 45 minutes before she could break the ice. So I mean, these are young people. That is severe. And they said, "No, parent, we need to come back. Something is wrong. It's not working." So we came back, and so social emotionally, I think we are improving compared to when we first came back. I'm glad to see the progress. Another issue is the shortage of educator. I still have opening for next year, and if you have anyone suitable, we have 2 kindergarten opening because we have too many kindergarteners. So then we have to open up 1 more class. So we have 2 opening for kindergarten and 1 opening for first grade next year. And I also think that right now, if they're not available out there, we have to somehow kind of like create or make our own teacher, like equip someone who might not certified yet, but kind of like do staff development to make it work, because it will be nightmare when September comes, there's no teacher in the classroom.
Yeah, I will keep my ears peeled for you if I hear of anybody looking for something like, hey, you should go live in Chicago. You got food, you got Chicago style pizza, you got all that fun stuff there in Chicago.
Particularly if those who are Christian and then they have a mission mind, they want to do cross-cultural, you do not need to travel to China. You could come to Chinatown and you could experience a cross-cultural mission.
I mean, I do love that. I think what an opportunity for somebody, especially for a teacher who does want to have the cross-cultural, like you mentioned. And so I'll keep it. I mean, obviously with this podcast is public, so maybe other school leaders are going to be listening in and go, I never thought about that. And maybe you'll get some calls from some of the listeners that we have. You never know.
That would be great.
And I think it's a perfect segue into the next section this is where my favorite section, because this is where you get to brag about your school. And I share anything that you're just like, man, we are doing so good at this. We're really proud of ourselves for, this accomplishment or anything. So I'll pass it off to you. Go ahead and brag all you want about your school.
You know what? If people ask me, well, actually a lot of people ask me, how come you never get tired? You work long hour, you come 7:30 a.m. and then you don't go until 7:30. And then you went home, you eat, and then you continue to work. And the next morning you are energized. Where is the energy coming from? My answer to them is, when we are plugged in, we will never run dry. When we are connected with the Creator God, we will never run dry. And what fueled me is when I don't think I will ever run out of energy if I walk into a place and be able to witness God's handiwork throughout the day, seeing Him, how He changed people's life. I want to store, I don't know if I'm probably over time. I'd like to share with you one of the story. I have many stories, but this story is a student, I'll call him Tommy, okay? He transferred to our 7th grade 3 years ago, actually 8th grade. It's very unusual that you will transfer the last year in middle school. But according to mom, they cannot stay in their former school anymore because he was severely bullied and he was absent more than in school because he got detention, suspension, all kinds of things happening. So after the interview, during the interview, Tommy never looked up, never give me eye contact, never look up, really reserved, head down. So, but I believe education is for everyone. It's not just for those 8th grade students. So we accepted him. So when the student record transferred to my office, it was really thick, and I looked at it, and I was like, there is a fear that like gone through my mind, because it was reading saying that this child is absolutely violent, and he's not allowed to walk by himself, not even to the bathroom. Someone would need to escort him because he has a history of physically and verbally harming students, harming teachers, and he bullied people online, physically, verbally, and in writing. So it sounded really severe. And no wonder he was absent so many days, because the teacher, according to mom, the teacher doesn't want him to be in school. So whatever he did wrong, suspend him, and then so they have a peace of mind. So I immediately communicate, this information to the teaching team, so everybody is on guard. We are not a big school. We don't have security. We don't have tons of manpower. So we begin to pray for Tommy. The first 3 months went by. None of the behavior described from the record showed up at all. What we observe is a person still very, very much inward, reserved, not involving in class activity, not doing homework, not doing classwork. He just a person there, and he's kind of like isolated. I had several meetings with mom. Mom was always crying. One time, I think the last time I met with them, all three of them together, was almost the end of the school year. I talked with mom, and then at the end I said, I'd like to ask Tommy to come to meet with us. So then all three of us, at that moment, because we walked to the classroom, so we were not in the office. I think the setting also helped because it's not in my office, and then I'm sitting facing him. I deliberately pulled a chair and sat next to him. And so both Tommy and me were facing mom. Mom was totally miserable, messed up, crying. So almost towards the end of the meeting, I said to Tommy in a very soft tone, and I said, Tommy, you know what? I believe you are very, very intelligent and you are very bright. We are here to help you. Nothing, no response. And then I said, do you know why I know that you're very brilliant? For one, you did not do any homework and you did not do any classwork, and you were not participating. You slept through the classes most of the time, and yet the most recent standardized test in April, you score high average into the 87 percentile. And I said, if you are not brilliant or intelligent, I do not know what it is. How can you skip all those? And you did not sleep most of the night because you play game overnight. That's why when you come to school, you are too tired to not to sleep. And I said, to live a life like that and still score 87 percentile. This is national percentile, not just Illinois. And I said, you are very, very intelligent. And at that moment, when I pointing out the evidence, I felt that his shoulder would jerk, and then he slowly looked up. First time giving me his eye contact to listen through everything else I was saying. And I said, don't allow anyone to determine your future. I did not know what had happened in the past. It must be miserable. And I said, your records show that you are a dangerous person, but I do not believe so. What I see is actually you are very kind. I saw you one day that you were helping after-school child with the math. And in such a kind way, you help that person. So by nature, you are not violent. By nature, you are very kind. And we did not see any of the violence behavior here, I believe, because this environment is very different. It doesn't cause for you to defend yourself, to fight for yourself. Here you have acceptance. Student loves you, teacher loves you, your principal loves you, and this is a loving place. And you know it or not, you think about it, for the past months, why aren't you behave the same way like you did? Because you don't need to. And I encourage him to look and see for himself. And then after that meeting, ask him, you need to define yourself according to how your Creator God created you originally. You ought to find that answer. Then after that, the next morning, I think maybe several mornings later, I ran into him, and he it was, to me, actually, it was a shock. And he walked, we walked by each other and said, "Good morning, Mrs. Ho." He said, "Whoa." Now, this is a very normal thing. My students say that again, but from him, and with a smile on his face, and said, "Whoa, this is right." And then I begin to hear report from the homeroom teacher. Tommy is doing homework. He's involved with discussion. He's doing classwork. And then one day she said, "You know what? He was so fast. He get it done, and he come and hand the paper to me and said, 'Any more? Can you give me more?'" From a person who's not doing anything to a person who get it done and say, "Do you have any more for me? Can you give me more?" You know what? No one could change anyone. I do not believe I have this ability. Only God could change someone. But my job is the ambassador. Channel God's love to the people who really needed that. So students like Tommy, there's tons of them in our school. People rejected them, but we take them in because I'm not looking at Tommy's behavior and determine who he is. I'm looking beyond that. And I'm also seeing Tommy, like tomorrow's Tommy, not today's, seeing a lot of potential and helping them to see the potential themselves and begin to see life being changed. See, some of the students stay with us from preschool to 8th grade. For students like Tommy, only 1 year. But I believe it might only take a month if there's the correct encounter. He only needed that chance. Someone to lend him a hand with understanding, help him to see the perspective, then they are ready to move on. So because of the life-changing story that happened again and again in this place, we never get tired because we got very excited. It's just, I'm talking and I'm smiling. I cannot help myself.
And Bonnie, I love that because I think more students need to be believed in by their schools and by their teachers. And I think most are, but just an encouragement for all those listeners to be like, kids need that believer, the teacher to believe in them, the school to believe in them, and to give them the resources and the encouragement that they need. And so I love that you guys are doing that at your school, and that it is bringing a smile to your face and encouraging you, keeping you from getting tired, because just fueling you to do the next generation that's coming behind him. So I love that. And it might even be the perfect segue into the kind of, as we wrap everything up, for you to go, what would be that piece of advice you would leave with somebody who's listening? So any of the school leaders who are listening, what is that piece that Bonnie Ho would want to leave with those that are listening?
Well, instead of a piece of advice, I would like to encourage educators that your work is not in vain. As tough as it might be, this generation and the generations to come, the young learner need you. And your investment in them will never come back void. Sometimes we are blessed with the immediate result, we see it. Some of them we don't. Maybe years down the road, or maybe when we met in heaven. But it doesn't matter. We do our part, and I believe our God will finish up the good work. So please do not abandon your mission as an educator. I know that there's a massive exodus of educators. Please be not one of them. Do not abandon your mission as an educator. Particularly if you are a Christian, you are giving a very special mission. So hang in there. Let us love our students. Sometimes we cannot correct them right, but we could love them right and bring joy to their learning.
Love it. Bonnie, that was an awesome way to end it. Thank you so much for giving up your time to hop on the podcast. I love being able to learn from you. I love learning about your being born in China and or being born in Hong Kong and coming over. Like, that's awesome. And I love what you're doing. I love that you are pouring into these students. So I just want to encourage you and give you my love and encouragement, saying thank you for pouring into that next generation and doing it without getting tired, because that's amazing. So please keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for pouring into that next generation.
Thank you so much for allowing me this chance to share with the public. Thank you.
Of course. Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Bonnie for taking time and being on the podcast today. I loved our conversation and I love what she's doing with her school there in Chicago. And I'm wishing them nothing but the best as they continue to grow and educate the next generation that's coming behind them. And as always, guys, I'm hoping you can take at least one thing from each episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. And if you are listening and you need help growing enrollment or finding ways to connect better with your families, I would love to hear from you. You can find us online, schoolsuccessmakers.com. That's schoolsuccessmakers.com. We work with schools all over the country to help them grow enrollment and streamline their application process with our homemade school success system to help them do just that. And we'd love to do that for your school as well. We have a private Facebook community I'd love you to join as well. I'm personally in there. It's called School Success Makers. So please go over there, join School Success Makers private Facebook group, of course, on Facebook. That we'd love to see you in there. And as always, we'll be here next week with another amazing guest on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.